Hello, my name is Jeff Martin. I'm here with Larry Lockwood, who is the CCO over at Elevate Bio. Larry, what is Elevate Bio and what are you guys doing over there?
Thank you for having me, Jeff. So Elevate Bio is a CDMO primarily focused on cell therapy. We have spent the time and resources to build our facility in Waltham. We're actually now expanding into our Pittsburgh facility.
I love Pittsburgh. It's my favorite city in the country.
Yeah, well, we have a concept that we're trying to move cell therapy towards industrialization. And Pittsburgh was really the home of industrialization here in the United States. So it's kind of a theme we're playing out internally. Cool. So in addition to that GMP manufacturing that we are continuing to expand upon and putting quite a bit of effort into, we also have a facility in Durham, North Carolina that is focused on gene editing, and they will enter into the discussion with clients very, very early on in the discovery stage, particularly with rare diseases. That's where they have the best fit.
Yeah. So cell therapy CDMO, one of the biggest things that I've been hearing a lot about recently is that getting your processes down very, very early, like day one, is the way to go. Over, changing something, even like media formulation, once you're post-IND is a huge deal. So what is the benefit? So first of all, what is day one? And what are the major benefits of like making sure you focus on these key things earlier than you'd think?
Okay. So from our perspective, day one is really when you have identified a candidate that you're ready to move into GMP manufacturing. Early on in that discovery process, you're spending time to make sure your therapy has the correct potency and it has the actual effect on the disease that you want it to have.
Right.
Once you're ready to move into GMP, that's when it becomes very important to manage the process and make sure that you have the process set up to achieve the cost of goods that you are targeting down the road.
Yeah. And
I'll elaborate a little bit on that. There's been a ton of pressure in the industry to reduce the cost per batch down below $100,000. ARM has a publication on this, and we have spent quite a bit of effort to evaluate automation, bring in the technical expertise, and really understand which automation is the right tool for the right project. That automation, we feel very confident, is going to help us continue to drive the cost of goods below that $100,000 per batch. And that's going to make cell therapies much more accessible to patient populations that previously could not access them.
Right. So day one is like you're in the lab, you got a lead candidate, pre-IND, and you're maybe doing your IND studies. What do you have to say to people maybe like even earlier than that, maybe like in like your PhD or things like that? Because I think that even looking at these kinds of things then can help a lot too, and maybe make even your thought process more serious. Because at the end of the day, we're doing the research to kind of move towards this. And I think, kind of extending our arms into that realm even earlier than that is going to be huge.
Well, I'll take one simple example. Oftentimes when a client comes to us at our Waltham facility with a cell therapy process, they have a belief that it's a fairly well-baked process that's reliable, it's robust, it's going to meet their cost of goods, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, the academic processes tend to have quite a bit of manual manipulation, and they are open to
inconsistencies
to the error.
or whatever.
Right, you have inconsistencies, and when you have that, you then have to operate that process in a grade B suite, for example, which costs more money. If you can come up with a process that can be operated in a suite that is grade C, for example, again, there's less support around that grade C suite, and that's something that will, again, impact your cost of goods. So those processes developed at an academic stage need to think down the road, hey, is this really scalable into a GMP facility where they're going to potentially be doing hundreds and hundreds of batches?
Right. So do you guys offer any kind of like consulting or, I'm going off script here a little bit, but
that's fine,
coming from an academic background myself, being in lab, you don't think about these things. My head's into biology. I don't care if it can scale. I'll be honest, right? So I think that getting the education in that level will, one, make your job easier down the line, probably, and two, it will solve a lot of problems down the road.
So it's interesting you came up with a consulting piece, because we're actually working on something internally where we could build a survey actually a self-survey, self-assessment
Yeah.
for an early stage process to understand, hey, have I considered this yet?
Right.
Have I thought through where this is going to end up? Again, Elevate Bio, we have quite a number of industry veterans that work for us, people from the companies that develop the very early stage cell therapies, Bluebird Bio, BMS, Novartis. These companies, these individuals have brought us that experience to think through things. They know where it's going at the end, and they can give good advice on where to start. So let me close that out. We have the self-survey we're thinking about, but the second piece is that we would like to be involved with clients even earlier than we do. Normally, we don't get involved with them until they already have a process that is somewhat
probably
farther
not good.
down the road. Yeah, farther
Right.
down the road, right?
Right.
We could have given them some advice early on.
Exactly.
And then it costs money to unravel it down the, the farther down the path you are.
Yeah. So, okay, so then you're focusing on cell therapies. What, again, off script, but what are you most looking forward to in the next 3 to 5 years as far as cell therapy goes? I've seen a lot of positive opinions, negative opinions, things like in vivo is coming in, and that kind of like crowds into the cell therapy space. So what are your thoughts on the industry as in general?
Yeah, so from my perspective, I am quite excited to see how technology is going to continue to help us drive those batch costs lower.
Yeah.
And, there's a famous quote from an author that I can't remember the name right now, but it effectively is, I have complete confidence in human ingenuity. And I've just seen so many things in my lifetime. People thought it wasn't possible, and then it becomes possible. And that's literally what we're doing. If we go back to the auto industry, you can imagine, in the late 1800s, it was really a cottage industry where you had to build each car individually, source each part individually, a lot of legwork.
Then along came Henry Ford.
Then came Henry Ford and industrialized it. So that's really, again, that's another theme we're advancing at Elevate Bio, because we know we have the resources and the intelligence in-house, as well as the facilities, to be able to industrialize cell therapy and make it more accessible to more people. And to close that out, that was one of the real drivers for us to expand into Pittsburgh, because now we have a facility built for purpose, and we're going to be able to implement everything that we do in at the Waltham campus into how we execute our business in Pittsburgh, and really use some of our learnings along the way.
Right. So what is that crosstalk like? There's different missions for each facility?
No, it'd be a very similar mission, but the facility we have outside of Boston was refitted. It was an old post office, in fact.
Okay.
So we had to we put a GMP manufacturing facility into an old post office facility.
Classic. That's
right. With that said, we now have the Pittsburgh facility built from the ground up in conjunction with many partners in the Pittsburgh area, and we're going to be able to, again, take the learnings from Waltham, transfer them to Pittsburgh, and that's also going to help us to design things to be more efficient, be better primed for the automation I mentioned. Because it's very clear in cell therapy, one of the barriers has been cost of goods. Cost of goods. And you're right.
The labor.
The human beings generate the labor costs. That's exactly right.
So speak more on the innovations in Pittsburgh. Like, what exactly are you guys thinking? Is it built, or is it in construction, or is it in planning?
Oh, no, it's ready to get turned on at the end of this year.
Okay.
26, early 2027. We will be in the situation where we're ready to tech transfer new programs into that facility.
Okay.
And it is the place called Hazelwood Green, just outside of the Pittsburgh downtown area.
Okay.
Again, it's in conjunction with the University of Pittsburgh and some other partners in that area, which again is a nice it's a nice fallback for us, because it gives us a community where
I love
where we have operators, and we have kind of an ecosystem to support it. Not quite the way we do in Boston, but it would be nice to generate that.
Yeah, with UPitt and Carnegie Mellon there, I love that area. Is so nice. So in terms of the actual technology, I'm very curious to know, I have some people who I work with who are doing robotics and automation that way. I've seen the new Tesla robots are coming out. You can train them to do different things. So can you speak to where in the cell therapy manufacturing process will robotics come in most handy?
Okay. So I'll give an example where we are working with a company called Multiply Labs.
Okay.
And my coworker, Mike Paglia, can speak in much more detail than I can on this.
Sure.
However, effectively what it does is you take a suite, you take the existing infrastructure like we have in Waltham or we'll have in Pittsburgh, and you use robots in place of human beings. So the robot would effectively be trained to manipulate certain things that the human operator would have to do.
Right.
And of course the robot can do it more methodically.
Yeah.
It's the data collection is
through
automatic.
the night. There's no getting tired.
That's exactly right. It's easier to execute a continuous operation when you take advantage of this automation.
Yeah.
Not to mention, I think that the advances we're seeing with robotics and automation, it's coming so much faster than it used to come. It's definitely just around the corner.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I was a little scared of like AI and robots. Like we've all seen the movies, right? But I think there's so much potential, especially with the cost of goods. I mean, it's one of the tough things I've been talking to these people today. One of the hard things about what we do here is that at the end of the day, the question becomes, is it about the patients or the business? And it has to kind of be both, unfortunately, right? And I think that delivering to the patients robustly and for a long time, we need to have good business models put into place, which is, it's kind of like, you can feel a certain way about it. But I think that with the automation, lowering costs of goods, it's becoming more and more probable that we're going to get a really robust business model out of cell therapies, which has been tough lately. It's very difficult.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at any industry, when it first gets going, the costs are very high and a lot of different ideas are being pursued. But we're now narrowing it down to a small handful of ideas. And there are lots of ideas out there that take advantage of like future infrastructure and other technologies.
Sure.
But the reality is Elevate Bio is trying to capitalize on the infrastructure we have now, so you don't have this lag period to wait for it.
Yeah.
We also are trying to develop something that in principle could be deployed in other places, because I believe it's the FDA guidance or some FDA recent publication talked about they want to expand cell therapies to communities where they don't have access to a regional center to receive the cell therapy. So in order to do that,
it's a big mission.
right. And in order to do that, you're going to have or take advantage of the existing infrastructure and not necessarily have to have
the local post offices and the
exactly.
Right.
Specialized technology to take specialized operators.
Yeah.
It's just not going to be applicable, on a larger scale.
Right.
So that's the model that Elevate Bio is pursuing.
Yeah.
And we have every confidence to really see it through.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see what's going to happen with that kind of stuff. So a few more things. I'm very curious to know about the gene editing stuff being taking place down in North Carolina.
Sure.
But I think real quick, just for me, I guess, what is like the ideal, if there's somebody out there who's developing a therapeutic, what is that ideal person for Elevate Bio? Like, what are they doing today that would kind of make them an ideal candidate to come work with you guys?
Okay. So what I can tell you is that most partners we end up working with have either they're in their animal study stages, so late development, late discovery, or more recently, because of the turnover in the cell therapy industry, we've been getting quite a few partners to come to us that are leaving their existing CMO because they're ready to move into a commercial late stage clinical trials or commercial manufacturing, and they want to have a partner that is ready to support that.
Sure.
Without a doubt, Elevate Bio can handle that. But we can also support those earlier stage clients. We have different business models now that are more amenable to an early stage client that maybe doesn't have the demand that a later stage program would have. Like for example, if you're dosing 200 patients a year, you have a different demand than if you're dosing 10 patients a year.
Right. For a small
and
phase.
sometimes in the past that model wasn't a good fit for Elevate Bio's facilities. But we've really revisited that, and we recognize we have to treat that part of the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so then now onto the gene editing stuff. So you mentioned that it's mainly reserved for like discovery, cell therapy. So speak to that. Is it more like finding the right editor, finding the right gene, the right insertion location? What is the actual discovery process?
So let me I can probably do it best through like an example. Okay, so companies or clients that have a domain knowledge about a specific disease. So if you pick a rare disease, they know the gene, they know the mutation or set of mutations that are causing that disease. In many cases, it's possible that the only way to treat it would be to use different nucleases for each one of the edits. What we can do down at Life Edit, which Life Edit was purchased by Elevate Bio, so we're kind of the Elevate Bio is the parent company, Life Edit is the subsidiary. But what we can do is we can evaluate that locus of genetic mutations and then find an editor that will take advantage of whatever technology is available. For example, maybe it's a base editor. In my example, wouldn't be a base editor. But there's other things such as the RT editing. And we have we're working on even more, let's call it cutting edge things like targeted gene insertion now that can really take the place of large chunks from a gene. We apply the tool that fits best, and many of our competitors in this world, Jeff, they have they have expertise in base editing or expertise
or talons or something like that.
Exactly.
Right.
They have a really narrow focus. We have a proprietary database that we've developed, and when there's no royalty stack, so it's very easy to work with us. And we're, again, I've talked about business models a bit, but we're coming up with business models that can allow our gene editing skill set to be democratized to these smaller companies that are looking for the right way to treat their rare disease.
Yeah, again, it's one of those things that I think, at least in my mind, it would be easily overlooked. You'd say, if it works, and move on. But it's the optimization, making sure it's going to work consistently at scale, reducing cost of goods. So yeah, I think that a lot of these things kind of go over people's heads sometimes. So it's good to know that there's companies like that out there who are exclusively focused on those kinds of things.
There's quite a big effort that we have to, once we have identified 2 or 3 editors, you then go back and you really dial in the potency and you narrow that editing window. It's amazing what we can do as human beings now.
Awesome. It was good talking to you, Barry.